Yeah. So,
I'm not sure that it's going to be very useful to talk about luck. Um, Perhaps serendipity or synchronicity would be better. But
yeah,
generally, I think
it's how wonderful how I don't, the luck is more of a placeholder for the
right,
feeling of gratitude.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go then with that. Okay, so we can say it as kind of a placeholder, or my how fortunate, or
Yeah.
wow, this is really good. Um, uh, when when something generally really good happens like that in the ordinary world, people um, they want to share it. They become kind of overwhelmed or overjoyed with um, the. Well, an example would be a real estate agent who's been working on a real estate deal for months and months, and finally she's got both the buyer and the seller's signature. And
Hmm.
so now that's a yippee ki moment.
Right.
But look how much anticipation and work and struggle that she went through to get that peak experience.
Yeah.
And then that peak experience doesn't last very long. In fact, maybe the peak experience of it is gone before the money ever gets into her bank account.
Yeah. So, maybe you can help me with this, where I can create the experience, um, but I can't lengthen it. Like, it feels
All right.
like it should be possible.
It is.
But I can, like, I can hit it, and then maybe 5 or 10 seconds later I can hit it again. Um, but I can't, like, hit it for long periods of time. Like, the hit
Um,
is, it feels like maybe a second or two.
okay. All right. So the word that we're looking for is how to sustain
Mm-hmm.
those feelings of sukha, those pleasurable feelings,
Yes.
feelings of winning, feelings of being able to do it. All right. So in the sutras, it talks about in to apply and sustain thought, which means to apply the mind to something and keep it sustained there. This is that ability to sustain is then a skill that is to be developed to sustain that sukha. Now, basically, the way that we're going to start sustaining it is by bringing it up over and over and over again. That kind of has the quality of sustaining. So the Buddha talks about, and this is kind of interesting about the first jhana, is that this sutta that I'm about to tell you about is only for the first jhana. This is not ever mentioned anywhere else about the higher jhanas, though they are at least listed several times
Mm-hmm.
uh, in with their factors and features. But only is it recommended for the first jhana to become skilled at going into it, skill at maintaining it, and then skill at coming out of it. Now, normally you'd think, wait a minute, wait a minute. Skill of coming out of it. What does that mean? Because normally we come out of it through lack of skill,
Mm-hmm.
that we fall out of it. And this is an indication of looking at there's really skillfully only one way to go, and that is into the higher jhanas.
Mm-hmm.
And that um, then the skill of developing the first jhana would be the ability to come out of the second jhana without losing the first jhana and coming all the way back into hindrances. Okay. So we're going to now look at and work on the quality of gaining first jhana, which we've been doing, and then learning how to sustain it. Well, the sustaining of it is very similar to the getting it in the first place. And so practicing what you got to get into it over and over again will help sustain it, which means in this regard that when we're going to have a mind that's fit for work so that we can apply it to what we want to apply it to and sustain it on that which we want it to sustain on, this is a skill that is an indication of how to keep that sukha going. We do that by keep putting that point of sukha back into play. Now, one of the ways that I normally state that is that we're going to start dividing the thoughts into two categories. The kind of thought that will keep us sustained in this, and the kind of thought that pulls us out. Okay, so now we have to, for you to start looking at this, because this is exactly your question, is how do we sustain it? We sustain it by saying the same things to ourselves that got us into that state. Like, oh, look at that, or this is marvelous, or aha, I see you, Mara.
Okay. And then when repeating the same thing, when that loses its juice, then just switching to another wholesome thought.
No, no. Now, when it loses its juice,
Yeah.
you have to be aware of that immediately so
Uh-huh.
that you can then say, aha, I see you, Mr. Myra, losing it.
Okay. All right.
Aha, I see that I'm losing it. And I
Yeah.
caught that too.
Yeah.
And I caught that too. Okay, so now we're beginning to understand that, oh, we have to make sure that we keep thoughts out that are going to pull it away. And the pulling and the thought that you had of pulling away was, I'm losing it, but you didn't have mindfulness at that point. So what happened was the mindfulness got chopped. You started having thoughts then that were Myra, and that those thoughts, I'm losing it, and then lost it for you. You're pulling it out. If you think
But
about it that way, the word I'm losing it or the thought I'm losing it is a loser's thought.
by
Losing
lo-
it.
by losing it, I meant that the thought no longer created the feeling of joy. Like like it's run out of like it's run out of its juice. Like I was able to like the thought was creating joy and similar to what I was saying about the Beethoven song where
Okay.
it was working really really well, but then it started to become annoying.
Okay. Now, um, there's two ways of looking at this, but mostly let's look at it from the perspective that um, the full-on heavy joy that you're talking about, if it goes away or if it softens, what does it soften into? Does it soften into a deep satisfaction, into a state of safety and security, or does it rot into some sort of annoyance or longing or wishing for it to come back? So those are the two things that can happen. One is that the piti softens into a nice, comfortable sukha to where, yeah, it really is nice, but we really don't have to convince ourselves of it. It's just there, but it's lost its excitement or the thrill, but the satisfaction is still there. That's good. Why? because that means that we can still sustain that sukha. And by doing so, we're still keeping the mind in wholesome places.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other possibility is to lose it, to go back into hindrances, to have loser's thoughts, feeling like a loser again, and wanting to get it back. All right, these are the two places. One is actually part of this of the sustaining of it, and the other one is the losing of it. So if you lost it, the question would be, how do you get it back again?
Mm-hmm.
Aha, I saw you wandering away.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you also maintain it, is, aha, I see that the quality has been changing. Now, when I describe this, it's going to take me full English description, giving you a concept to where this can happen in your mind very, very quickly.
Right. So I don't
All
need to
right.
use all the verbal.
All the verbal stuff that I'm using to describe it is not necessary for
Right.
you to go through this.
Right.
But that quality of, aha, I see you again, Mara, creeping in, because that's how it comes in. It creeps in,
Mm-hmm.
and that we have to gain that quality of, I can see you, I can see you. And so this observation, now, one of these things that will help with that is to remember to take the deep, satisfying, long breath. That in fact, there's a way of looking at it that's right there in the suttas, and that is that as you take in a long, deep breath, that taking in or that in breath then is a point of observation that we can call sati. So you have sati in the sense that you know that this is a long, deep breath. And then you have sati again, you know that this is a long out breath,
Mm-hmm.
which means that every breath, in breath and out breath together, is going to give you 2 points of sati. And as the breath gets deep and long, it does have the quality of getting in long duration. So that if you got down to where you've got 10 breaths a minute, excuse me, if you're taking one breath in 10 seconds, then you're down to 6 breaths a minute, which is means that it's the average they say is 20. I don't think I've ever seen people breathe at such a fast rate, other than a dog. But most of us do breathe 10, 12, 14 times a minute. So if we're able to have a breath down to 10, then that means that we're breathing at 10 or at 6 breaths a minute. So if you can link that then to a count of 20 or 20 seconds, now we're down to 3 breaths a minute. Now the breath is getting really, really long and slow,
Mm-hmm.
but there is plenty of time during these long, slow in breaths to do a whole lot of stuff. But one point that we're going to make is sati on the in breath. Is this a long in breath?
Mm-hmm.
Sati, is this a long out breath? So that we make sure that every breath that comes in is a long in breath, and every breath that we get let out is a long out breath. And we still have plenty of other time to do the anapanasati stuff, including gladdening the mind and feeling really good. So you can do that breathing, in fact, with those kinds of thoughts. This feels really good on an out breath. Ah, feels really good. All right. So that would be an important part, because if we let the breathing, even if we're aware of it, kind of, but we let it go back to normal, then um, our grasp of it is not very strong, and so we will lose the watching of the breath as the mind easily wanders away. But if we're solidly there with that sati, every in breath and every out breath, then that's going to keep the mind more focused, so that we can have a better chance of watching the kinds of thoughts that come to rob us of those good feelings. yes, it will get to the point that it's not an exciting, tingly joy anymore, but it does just kind of melt into a deep satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
a satisfaction that has the quality of being really, really safe and secure.
Mm-hmm.
That there is no anxiety, there's nothing to do, the phone's not ringing, the children are out yelling at you, the nothing is going on. This is just it, and that gives us a great sense of um, security. That
How
nobody wants anything from me right now.
how important is the duration of the PT part?
Um, Not nearly as important as the sustaining of the sukha.
Okay. Okay.
That if um, here's the thing, that most of the work that we do will be done in learning how to get in and sustain that first jhana so that we can spend a lot of time in that state of satisfaction. When
Mm-hmm.
we first get into it, that's when piti is there, especially with the point of, aha, I did it. My almost to the point of my, what a good boy am I,
Mm-hmm.
that we pulled out a plum. So that's the way that we look at, wow, I can do this, and that's the quality of the sukha. The quality of the piti. It
Mm-hmm.
has the quality of winner. This is the attitude of a lion. So that also is a skill to be developed. So you can, part of what you say not only is my, this is nice, but you can also say things like, I can do this. You can go so far as to say, no matter how obstructed the mind gets, I can do this. I can bring the mind back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the quality of piti for the first jhana. But then the piti comes again in the second jhana with that same quality of I can do this, only now what we're able to do is to get the mind to shut up completely so
Mm-hmm.
that it's completely quiet. But if we have the thought, then, aha, I can do this while in second jhana, it pulls us right out of it because that's a
Right.
thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why it's hard to develop the second jhana going into the second jhana, because every time we go into the second jhana, when it's a beginner's thing, we get kind of excited that the thrill is really there. The piti is really, really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And it often then that starts up the mind again.
Mm-hmm.
So um, uh, that, but the second jhana is not nearly as much of a value as this first jhana. The Buddha says in the sutta, it says is uh, almost like, by gum and by glory, I've worked all of this hard when I had the secret all along in my pocket. The first jhana is, in fact, the path to enlightenment. That we don't have to go into these high states that take so long to develop. That the path to enlightenment is just getting ourselves into this state of satisfaction. So, yes, the piti is going to be there as a component to get us into the first jhana, but then we want to sustain it, but not in the sense of excitement. It's almost like this: the runner runs the 100-yard dash, and just as he's winning and ending that dash, his arms are in the air. He's really excited, right? He's won. That's the piti. But then maybe a second or 5 or 10 seconds later, he's now going to go down on one knee
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to start taking a few deep breaths. And now that's when the sukha is setting in, the pleasure of having won the race.
Mm-hmm.
So the first is the rapture of the recognition that we've won the race. And that's the piti. That's the full-blown joy. But then that sort of mellows into a deep satisfaction. That deep satisfaction then is the sukha. So
Mm-hmm.
they are different, but they are both components to the first jhana. And that every time that we lose the first jhana and come back into it, it's aha, I caught you again, Mara. And that aha, I caught you again is actually that joy,
Right.
becoming
Mm-hmm.
joyful that you can catch the mind wandering away. But now we're going to even though that's a kind of a big deal when we've got no jhana and we finally start practicing to get ourselves into it, now it's more subtle. But the point is to continue to observe the mind or be on guard. The word that I use often is to be on guard to make sure that you're only going to have thoughts that are wholesome and that are going to keep this state of satisfaction sustained. And we're not going to allow the kind of thoughts that will pull us out of it. The
Mm-hmm.
kind of thought that you had that pulled you out of it was, oh, the thrill is gone.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of just recognizing all the pity is melted into sukha, the thrill is gone, actually pulls you all the way out of the jhana. And now you're wanting something.
Mm-hmm.
So that first jhana has that very, very interesting characteristic that it is satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
That this is really nice. And generally what I find with most Western students is that their lust for the higher jhanas is an indication that they're not doing the development of the first jhana very well, because the development of the first jhana is going to give them a very, very deep sense of satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
and that's far enough. Now, there are things that we can do to gain the second jhana, but all of them have to do with closing the mind down further and tighter till we get it down to one or two words, like a mantra, and then we can throw that out and become completely thoughtless.
Right.
So on the road then is that quality of tightening and focusing the mind and getting it smaller and smaller. And that's exactly what I was talking about in the sense of guarding the mind, to
Mm-hmm.
guard the mind, to make sure that you're only going to allow the kind of thoughts in that you want to have in,
Mm-hmm.
and to not allow the kind of thoughts that are going to pull you out of your state of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So, thoughts of this present moment, thoughts about how good we feel, thoughts of, aha, I see you, Mara, which basically, when we say, aha, I see you, Mara, that's actually practicing the first noble truth.
Mm-hmm.
I see dukkha, I
Mm-hmm.
see it, rather than becoming it. In other words, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to sneak up on, grab me, and grab a hold of me like anger does for folks. That when people are angry, they say, I am angry. The right way to say it would be, there is anger. The feeling of anger has come, but I am not the anger.
Mm-hmm.
And so we begin to disassociate ourselves from the Mara, or from the thoughts that keep us out of a state of satisfaction. And so we begin actually throughout the day to begin to only have wholesome thoughts and to not allow unwholesome thoughts to come into the mind. What would be unwholesome in that case would be thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future, thoughts of work that has to be done, thought of activities, um, duties, this kind of thing would be the kind of things that would keep us out of a state of satisfaction. And one of the things that would be worthy of our investigation while we're in the state of satisfaction would be, that's suffering, and I'm not going to let it in. That's the cause of the suffering. Or, this is the way the mind works.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're really beginning to look at the way that the mind works while it's working. And this is the process that we go through, is only having the wholesome thoughts, which is in fact a deep investigation of what's going on. So if we're actually paying attention to what's going on in the moment, we can begin to figure out how the mind works. We can see that, in fact, we are not the personality, that I am not those hindrances, that I am not anchor, that that's separate from who I am. We one student used the word disassociation, and I
Mm-hmm.
like that because we associate, when we're angry, we associate with the anger. When we're sad, we associate with the sad. Now, what you're practicing is to disassociate from that. That's not who you really are. That's who you have been trained to be,
Mm-hmm.
but you are not your personality. That's one of the major changes in the practice of anapanasati for students, is to come to understand that they are not who they thought they were. That this personality can be changed. That the old way of doing things over and over and over again and getting the same results and expecting a different result is not who I am. That I can in fact change that old way. And we're in fact practicing changing that old way right now. That's what we're doing, is that we're staying out of that old personality by being on guard for it, so that we can stay in a state that we like, that's pleasant, rather than the one that is, let us say, we unskillfully develop these skills over a long period of time. Your whole lifetime you spent in feeling bad and making wrong decisions and whatnot like that is not who you are. But that stuff seems to grab you and pull you back into it very easily, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That's your normal state. And that sati, or the waking up, is changing that normal, natural old state into a state that you actually want. This is your choice. Do you want to feel the way that you've been feeling all your life? Or do you want to start feeling the way you want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's going to try to pull you back again? So be on guard to not let it pull you back in.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So this is the first thing, be on guard for the mind. Because if you're saying, wow, this is really nice and I'm going to keep this and I'm not going to let any thoughts come in that is going to disturb this,
Mm-hmm.
then that sets you on guard, so that when the mind starts to wander just a little bit, you can say, aha, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
Because even while you're feeling really good, those thoughts, those old distracting thoughts can come up. And so, like I said, the anchor for every breath, every in breath is an anchor. Every out breath is an anchor. Keep coming back to the breath over and over and over again, kind
Mm-hmm.
of as a check-in, because that will help keep those destructive, hindering thoughts away. But they will return. And when they do, you're there. Your job is, I see that too.
Mm-hmm.
I see the boredom sneaking in. I see the desire for more joy.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is pulling you out of it, you pay attention to it. You look at that,
All right.
and you begin to see what those old habits have been doing to you.
All right. I'll get on that.
All right. Well, this has been an interesting, a short call, but I think that that's probably good too.
All right. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty tired, so I need to get some sleep.
All right. Well, I'm glad that we were able to get in touch, and you stay happy.
All right.
And you
Thank you.
remember, you be on guard to be happy.
All right. Bye bye.
Okay, bye-bye.